This is CNN.
I'm Roland Evans. Robert Novak and I will question President Bush's cabinet member charged with finding job opportunities for the inner cities following the Los Angeles riots.
She is Secretary of Labor, Lynn Martin.
The devastation of the Los Angeles riots has left up to 40,000 workers jobless in an area where unemployment was high even before the 3 days of fires and looting. President Bush this week summoned the congressional leadership of both parties and outlined a program that includes new federal jobs.
On youth jobs, I think it's 683 for the summer, and now we're going up for new authorization on youth apprenticeship and job training 2000.
Democrats offered to cooperate, but sounded skeptical.
So I don't want to just see a few code words for a few days. I want to see the president invested in this in a serious way.
Madam Secretary, with the President and the Democratic Congress both on board for more money for new jobs, isn't that the message to the inner city, burn, baby, burn, and you'll get money and attention?
No, I think it's quite the opposite. What it is a recognition that in many areas where people have not been able to, first of all, find work or don't have the training for work, that there have to be job opportunities so you can be part of the American economic miracle. And that makes sense. That's not just Republican, that's Democratic, that's all over, and it must be. But the difficulty is, and we all must say it, that when we lost those 40,000 jobs in Los Angeles, it is not going to be easy to rebuild some of those places, and that is why there has to be this cooperation. We're talking about people whose sweat was in there. We're talking about people whose jobs were taken from them. And I think all Americans want to be sure of two things: that those people, through no fault of their own,
You're talking about the merchants.
Right, not just merchants, the people who work with them and for them, that those people don't find themselves the most innocent of all victims of that. And secondarily, that there is a re-examination of the kind of training. You just heard President Bush talk about a new apprenticeship program. That is something we've got to have.
Okay, everything you said is very worthy. You didn't answer my question. Truth is, we can all sit here and agree that this administration and the Democratic Congress, urban jobs in the urban area, problem of the inner city was not on any agenda. You can take a search of everything that was said at the White House and in Congress. Nothing was said. Isn't the message that if you want to get attention from the United States government, the federal government, throw a few Molotov cocktails?
No, I think, in fact, if there's any message, it has to be a greater recognition from the Congress and from all of us that we have to do and talk more about programs that were already there. Take a look, really, about what's been up at the Hill. Take a look at everything from enterprise zones to home programs to our new job training. We still haven't moved any of these, and we must. Now, just because they weren't on television every night, that's a choice of what to cover.
You're not saying, are you, Secretary Martin, that this administration was doing as much as it should have done in this area?
I can tell you this, that as Secretary of Labor, born and raised in the city of Chicago, that I have always been committed, and this president put me in this job because he is too.
Madam Secretary, the Davis-Bacon Act requires people who are going to try to rebuild Los Angeles to pay huge prevailing wage rates. How can you put these untutored black and other kids at jobs at that high level of pay and find an employer who will pay it?
Well, I think what we're looking for, not just in Los Angeles, but in this case, in cities around, and there can be agreement. This doesn't have to be a big issue, or it doesn't even have to be all of Davis-Bacon, which reasonable people can disagree on. It can be, how do we have ways to have people get that first step to training? There are going to be no good jobs below the apprenticeship and the journeyman level. And I think we all know, and there can be agreement in specialized areas. I hope we're going to be able to reach that agreement, not just with businesses, not just with unions, because again, we keep coming back to the same thing, and it's true. Unless in this modern world young people have training, they are going to be doomed their entire life to failure.
Madam Secretary, you know the building and construction trades unions are absolutely dead set 100% against any reduction or any change in Davis-Bacon. They went to court on it. You are in court now. It's Martin versus the construction trades unions.
But we're talking here about some specific areas. As you know, and perhaps those listening know, that in emergencies, in FEMA, when there's floods,
FEMA?
The Federal Emergency Act, in those particular areas, Davis-Bacon doesn't hold true, and that we might want to, all of us, look at very specialized areas. I'm not going to argue that unions are always right, but I'm certainly not going to suggest either that we don't need a high quality of people in the construction trades, and we do.
But will you tell us now, and then you got a lot of people fascinated with this particular subject.
Yes, we do.
Are you going to get the union's approval to waive Davis-Bacon? Yes. Can you say yes or no?
I cannot say yes or no, but certainly I know that the leadership, everybody, I mean, you know, there's always this idea to divide, want to make sure we can do the most. Look, there's only so much money. We can talk about more money, but there's only so much. How do we use it best? This might well be one important way.
But if the unions say no, you must continue to pay prevailing wages, which are $17, $18, $19 an hour in the Los Angeles area.
I have greater faith than you.
What can you do about it?
I still believe, optimistically, that all of us want to work out the best things for the people.
So you predict the unions are going to cave on this?
No, not cave. I predict that decent people are going to be able to work out a solution.
One of the former...
That's not caving, that's working for our fellow Americans.
One of the former officials in the Bush administration, William Bennett, who was the drug czar, he was Secretary of Education in the Reagan administration, sees the danger that the proposals that are coming out of this administration, when they go through the congressional meat grinder, will become a Christmas tree. If I could mix the...
Sure, there always a danger, but Bill Bennett would also argue you still have to try and get some things accomplished. We can't have, look, there's still members of Congress that want to have huge new programs with huge new taxes. You've heard people say, oh, let's have an even bigger CETA. For heaven's sakes, if there's one thing we should have learned by now is let's look and see what works. Let's not cost other people their jobs by having a tax increase. So I think those are limits that will not be abridged.
Carter administration program for jobs.
It was pre-Carter. And the idea of it, everything's always well-intentioned, by the way. No, everybody says, isn't this a great idea? It was public service, very little training, you got a stipend, and it ended up very expensive, and it also ended up that most people in it didn't end up with long-term work. That's not a good program, and that's not what anybody wants. I can't believe even Democrats who may have well supported that program today, it's 1992.
But you say there is a danger of it becoming a Christmas tree with just a big spending thing. It's going to be very hard to veto anything, isn't it? Very hard?
Look, the House and Senate now, and as a former member, I have to say this, every day you read something else about them that takes your breath away. I mean, that's just reality. If they wanted to do for themselves, forget even the nation, the best thing it would be, we're going to work out something with the president. What good does it do anybody, including the people that desperately need help, for them to make a Christmas tree that has to be cut down? Both sides have to reach agreement.
I'm going to ask you a philosophical question. I know you're a great philosopher.
Oh, hardly not.
Philosopher queen, can I say yes?
Oh, I hope not, no.
Anyway, Madam Secretary, when we have these young people, 100,000 active members of gangs in South Central Los Angeles, when they, just like that, are out in the street throwing Molotov cocktails, when they go on television and warn that there's if they don't get exactly what they want, they will burn again. Do you really think your little programs for jobs are going to solve the social pathology in the city?
Well, let me tell you what also wasn't on television. Young black men and women boarding up and standing in front of the windows of our Job Corps to protect it from mobs. Are there hooligans?
That was
You
that was
bet.
the exception of what you're talking about.
Those were young people who want a chance. Now, can you end every hooligan? No. Does there have to be a combination? Has crack, has a diminution of values made a difference? You bet. But are the majority of people and young people there eager for a chance and eager to learn? Yes, and yes, we can and will make a difference.
Madam Secretary, I hate to introduce a crass political note, but just
Yes.
one more question on Davis-Bacon.
I know you would never be political.
If you
I know that.
succeed in waiving or removing some of the restrictions under the Davis-Bacon High Wage Act, and you put thousands of unskilled trainees in those jobs, won't the so-called Reagan Democrats, the blue collar, used to be voting Democrats, they switched to Reagan, we call them Reagan Democrats, the people who are in the unions and who think those jobs belong to them, won't they be lost to George Bush in 1992?
Let me not be political, but tell you a reality. In many areas that we're looking about building and rebuilding, there were no jobs for union workers. That didn't occur anyway. It isn't taking a job from anyone. But it is saying that we have to have a program, and I don't care, I don't think you have to call it Davis-Bacon, that involves young people and others in the community in rebuilding. If all rebuilding comes from outside, if it all is done by a contract, rather than not just helping, but making the people there part of the solution, we fail. And that isn't Davis-Bacon. And yes, I think every union leader would agree with just what I said, that the community must be part of the solution.
And Marlon Fitzwater, the President's press secretary, said this week, it will be at least 3 to 4 weeks before we know whether there is going to be a program that the President, Republican, and the Congress, Democrats, can agree on. Do you think, it's already been more than 2 weeks since the riots, do you consider this the kind of pace and rapidity that you would expect to come out of an emergency like this? You're now looking at the middle of June, the end of June, and Jack Kemp said he wanted a final program by July 4th.
I can only say that the Congress would do itself the biggest favor in the world if they would move it quickly and get it done.
So you think it's on Congress's back, not the White House?
No, I'm not tracing blame. Every committee may want a part of it. I understand all that. I'm just saying, I just don't think most Americans understand anymore how, when we have jet planes and we have instant faxes, you can't get something done when you see what you have to do.
I want to ask you 4 specific questions on the enterprise zones on taxes.
Yes.
Is it the administration's position now, zero capital gains tax, correct?
No, the administration, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, we're reversing, yes, okay, sorry.
What about sales tax abatement? Is that part of your program?
Not the sales tax abatement. There are varying enterprise zone packages. And the administration package looks, you know, you can go from here sort of to here with it. And so I don't want to limit the administration to what it's for. I think you should do whatever you need to do to attract jobs in there, or otherwise it's over.
Without being rude, you can't answer the question today as to whether there should be sales tax abatement. You can't answer that.
Well, much of the sales tax is state and local. That isn't federal.
But you're either
federal,
for it or against it, the administration.
With the administration, I'd be for it, but the administration doesn't control sales tax. That's a state and local issue.
How about reinsurance programs to help the insurance companies get in there and insure? Is that part of your program?
I think we have to look at reinsurance, and we also have to look at ways for small businesses, not just in LA. I mean, the biggest danger is to talk about this just in LA. We have to see ways for small and startup businesses to have access to insurance.
But is that in the package, the President's package?
Well, in the President's package, I don't do that part of the President's package. I do the jobs part of the package, but not the tax part of the package. So I don't want to be the one to say what is or isn't there.
The enterprise zone is associated with Secretary of Housing Jack Kemp.
You bet.
Now, I wonder if you're a candid person, more or less, for a politician.
Do I detect that isn't the biggest compliment in the world?
Madam Secretary, don't you think that your administration owes Jack Kemp an apology after 3 years of ridiculing him, ignoring him, not doing anything with his proposals, and belittling him?
I always thought you knew Jack Kemp better than that. I've never known anyone who was able to ignore Jack Kemp. And let me just say something. I watched Jack Kemp in a sort of a mano-a-mano with one of the Democratic senators saying what's absolutely true. and that is, this is a commitment from this administration and this president. There were those a few years ago that said that George Bush should not have chosen Jack Kemp, and he said, I want the best person, I want Jack Kemp. Now Jack Kemp is also showing why he was a superb choice and why this president made that choice.
You're not sitting here and telling the television viewers that Jack Kemp was not in Siberia for 3 years, in this administration, in a cold storage?
Well, I've been in the cabinet for a year, and at every cabinet meeting I've ever been to, I never noticed Jack reticent about speaking, and I find that one of his charms. Now, does it mean, and he would tell you too, he's not always right, but by golly, Jack's there, and this president, and I am going to say this, wants different people. Jack Kemp and I come from no cookie cutters. And that says something about George Bush.
Madam Secretary, on the broader political level, why is it that the president's popularity, his approval rating, has gone down between April and May, when in a classic case of an emergency, the president usually goes up? He is down from 36 to 33%, and Perot is up. Clinton is also down.
I know.
And Ross Perot's up. Tell us why that is.
No, I won't, because I don't know. Some of the times I don't understand these things, and the idea you have people on that always know everything amazes me. But I think part of it is this, for all of them. If you see any comment now about anyone running for office, and Mr. Perot really hasn't gotten into it fully yet, but will, there's never anything positive said. I listened to Mr. Clinton last night, who I'm sure, you know, has some fine ideas. Just because someone's a different party doesn't mean everything's wrong. He repeated, to a great extent, things that the president said 6 months ago. They agree. Why aren't we talking about things like that? And I don't have the answer.
Madam Secretary, we have to break for messages. But when we come back, it will be with the big question for Secretary Lynn Martin.
For a while, the law didn't exist. Now some LA gang members are getting overdue justice. Plus, what should presidential candidates look for in a running mate? On CNN's Capital Gang, 7 Eastern tonight.
The legendary Trane Climatough compressor, stout heart of Trane air conditioners. In a test like this, engineers have been pushing a Trane compressor to its limits, trying to make it fail. They've been trying and trying for over 20 years. Designed, tested, and manufactured to last. It's hard to stop a Trane.
At GMC Truck, our only business is trucks. That has been for over 80 years. A dedication to truck strengths and values to keep in mind. Because when you need to haul something, tow something, carry precious cargo, find new trails, or simply ride high and proud, there's nothing quite as strong as a truck. GMC Truck, the strength of experience.
Afraid swimsuit season will reflect badly on you? Then make the under 200-calorie Kellogg's Special K breakfast part of your diet plan. And get the shape that reflects the way you want to be. Kellogg's Special K. Lose that winter fat.
For the heroes of yesterday, the defenders of today, and the guardians of tomorrow, TNT stands tall with the Memorial Weekend Movie Salute, May 24th and 25th.
Secretary Lynn Martin, the big question. As a pro-choice Republican leader, and you are a leader in your party, do you really think your party should keep the anti-abortion language of the 1988 platform in the 1992 platform?
Well, in my usual ability to get everyone mad at the same time, I must tell you I'm not a big platform reader, and I don't think most Americans are. I do think parties, just as the Democrats have strong pro-lifers, Republicans are going to have strong pro-choicers, and that will be a definition to be made and a distinction to be made at the convention. But whatever happens in a platform, Republicans will have differences. But if I might for a minute, it seems to me you're forgetting an even more important big question. What couple
we'd like
is
to stay on this
celebrating
one.
a 29th anniversary as we sit here?
Oh,
That's Evans
seems to
Novak.
be
That's
the-
very
Novak, that is very sweet.
It's very hard for me to, after that
Yeah,
sweetness
you
on your
can't
part,
be
it's hard for
nasty
me to
now.
say what I'm going to say.
But you will.
But you,
Yeah.
yes, I will. You really copped out on that, Madam Secretary, because my partner asked you a very simple question. Should the platform be changed? And you're a free citizen of this country, and
I
you
am
have a
free
right to say,
citizen of this
yes,
country.
it should be changed. No, it shouldn't.
And a Republican leader.
And I am both.
So what's your
and what
answer?
I will say is it seems to me that the president and the candidate for president of a party has a right to define the platform as long as people have their choice and conscience, as I know Evans
Rich
Novak
Williamson is
believes.
running in your party for
Yes.
the Senate in
Yes.
Illinois. This issue has confounded his campaign. He has switched from anti-abortion to pro-choice. Isn't this enough by itself to persuade you that the party should have a big tent, as Lee Atwater called it, in its platform on this issue?
Well, the party is and must be a big tent. And I would say to any candidate, regardless of party, know where you are, state it calmly and clearly, and then be true to yourself.
Has the president put a muzzle on you, told you not to comment on this?
You've got to be kidding.
Well,
The president-
you're not commenting on it.
Oh, no, we've just described me as
Okay.
pro-choice and
All right.
proud of it.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us, Secretary Martin. My partner and I will be back with some comments after these messages.
The stranger and his trusty grill stood ready for the fight. Other sauces against Bullseye to see which tasted right. And as the smoke rose off his grill, Hunt's was laid to waste. Then Masterpiece and Heinz dropped out against Bullseye Big Bold Taste. Yes, the stranger had won the day with a sauce that beat the rest. The Big Bold Taste of Bullseye tastes the best. And now there's Bullseye's Bold and Chunky with big chunks of onion and green peppers.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
Hey, is Tegrin shampoo on sale? Nope, that's their new lower price. But it's still just as tough on dandruff, right? Sure, Tegrin doesn't do less, just costs less. Sounds right to me.
Tegrin, the right dandruff shampoo at the right price.
Now there are cars and trucks that run on clean-burning natural gas.
Yeah, but how clean can it be?
Natural gas reduces the emissions that cause smog by 80%.
Yeah, but what does it cost?
It's like saving 40 cents a gallon on gasoline.
Yeah, but where does it come from?
Natural gas comes from right here in North America.
Yeah, but who makes the vehicles?
America's automakers are turning out fleets of natural gas cars and trucks.
Yeah, but do they come with tinted windows?
Each year, corporate America spends over $10 billion on overnight shipping. Yet, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, $3 billion of that is wasted. If you find that kind of inefficiency alarming, call UPS. We can save you up to 40% on overnight deliveries and help prevent your profits from going up in smoke. UPS. We run the tightest ship in the shipping business.
Bob, that was gracious of Lynn Martin to recall that this is our 29th anniversary of the Evans Novak column. But on some other stuff, she wasn't quite so specific. She talked about the Christmas tree, we might have one, and that's not her fault, because she can't answer specific questions about the inner cities program because the White House hasn't yet decided. And I think that speaks badly of the way this program is being built.
Another thing she really can't do is explain why she says no. It isn't the fact that when you throw Molotov cocktails at businessmen in the inner city, you get attention from the federal government, which has been ignoring you. I'm afraid, Rolly, that is the message of the riots, that the rioters do get attention and money from the federal government.
You know, Secretary Martin is Secretary of Labor, after all, and labor is not the biggest thing on this administration's agenda. And so she was very tender, however, in talking about reduced wage rates in rebuilding, reconstructing the ghettos in Los Angeles, because she didn't want to offend the building and construction trades unions. I thought she handled it well, But I think there is still no answer on that question.
I really feel for Secretary Martin on the abortion issue because President Bush has laid down the word he doesn't want a comma change in the anti-abortion position in the platform, and she is pro-choice and says there's room for pro-choice Republicans in the Republican Party. She says the platform doesn't count. It counts to a lot of people. I'm Robert Novak.
I'm Roland Evans.
For a transcript of Evans and Novak, send $4 to Evans and Novak Transcripts, Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 1-303-831-9000. Your comments may be sent to the same address.
What if we could make all the clean air and water we need?
What if there was enough food for everyone?
What if we understood the aging process?
What if we cared so much about education we made the most of every mind?
What if research in space made life better on Earth?
We're helping to build Space Station Freedom, the next step in space exploration, and a new way to look at the home planet.
So, what would you expect from a gas grill made by Weber?
Everything. Genesis, the Weber of gas grills.
Behind this umbrella stands an independent agent representing the travelers, your partner in insurance protection. Open in case you want the team that delivers. You're better off under the umbrella.
On CNN Tonight, police brutality, emotional response, or aggression taught in training on both sides with Jesse Jackson. Then on Reliable Sources, perks and privilege, the press versus Congress. All tonight on CNN.
Hello, everybody. Coming up later today, are police losing the public trust? Jesse Jackson looks at that issue with police officers and a professor of criminal justice. That at 9 p.m. Eastern. Coming up today on the Capitol Gang, Senator Harris Wofford. That is at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on CNN. And coming up shortly, problems in our cities. 3 mayors focus on the urgent need for urban reform. That's on Newsmaker Saturday about 30 minutes from now at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Coming up shortly on Newsday Saturday, dozens of mayors from all across the country march on Washington, calling on the government to save their cities. It is a plea for jobs and urban reform, a push which is gaining momentum. And as Los Angeles begins to rebuild, some athletes help get the ball rolling. We'll spotlight efforts to heal that riot-scarred city. Then later, an illness that saps strength and causes mental confusion. We'll have a report on chronic fatigue syndrome, an ailment which affects thousands upon thousands. And things are jumping at a jubilee in California as some agile amphibians hop to it. We'll focus on some frenzied frogs and their annual feat, a crazy tradition in Calaveras County. Those stories and more just ahead on Newsday Saturday.